Hey, good afternoon, and wherever you are, or good morning. This is Charlie King from Heroic Fatherhood. I'm super excited. We're trying out some variations on technology that we've been using, and I want to invite to the screen left David Bradfield and Mike McDowell of Reno Dads. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Charlie and Ollie.
And you're have to forgive us. We're figuring out the technology as we go along. This is the first time we've had as I like to tell Mike before we got on. This is the first time I've had a three-way. It's not going as I predicted or it had envisioned. But this is another in the series of Dads Making a Difference interviews that we're doing in the run-up to the Dad 2.0 conference. This is an opportunity to really shine a light on bloggers and men who are out sharing their stories and actively trying to make a difference for dads in the world, and really trying to lift up the picture of what we have of fatherhood, shine a light on some of the challenges and struggles that we all face, and work together and really create some camaraderie and fellowship amongst dads. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Gladly. Excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So if you guys looked out your window, where would you tell us you are? Where are you guys? Where are you digitally coming in from today?
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I'm looking at Mount Rose, just shy of Lake Tahoe here in Reno, Nevada.
And I'm at the office at the University of Nevada, Reno.
Oh my goodness. It is probably just gorgeous there. Reno is a lovely, lovely place.
Yeah, it's not everything that, gambling and legalized prostitution has made it out to be in Reno 911. It's really a great community, a really great family community, and one we're trying to increase some awareness about that a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Yeah, I've only gotten a chance to pass through a couple of times, but it's just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous area. Mm-hmm. So I got, you both are kind of new to me. Actually, David and I have not spoken before this time right now. And Mike and I spoke briefly this past week, and I've had a chance to, take a look at the work that you guys are doing. You guys have a group that's called Reno Dads. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we've been sort of honing in on how to answer this question, what is Reno Dads, for a while here. We've been out at events and we'll get that question, 100 times in a row. So, they see the banner, go, what's Reno Dads? So we're trying to work on that definition, and truthfully, it's been evolving since we started things off. But really, we're not what may be a typical city dads group where it's get-togethers and that sort of thing. We really just thought we want to celebrate fatherhood, and so we thought one way to do that was through a blog. So we started as Reno Dads blog, and now it's our chief product, but have sort of evolved since then. So at the centerpiece, we just I think continue to say we're here to celebrate fatherhood. We're here to have an impact on our community here in Reno Sparks, Carson City, Tahoe, and that's the long short version of it.
Nice. So, David, what brought you to it? I've heard Mike. Tell us a little bit about your story about how you and Mike met and how the idea for Reno Dads came about.
Well, Mike and I met actually, 18 years ago or so in college, fraternity brothers. So we've gone through the whole gamut of, being single college guys to raising kids, and our lives took us separate ways overseas and across our country. But my wife started writing for a similar blog to ours, as Reno Mom's blog, and we're thinking, how come there's not a resource for dads in our community? How come there's not a way for dads to be encouraged to be engaged in their children's lives in our community specifically? Of course, there's Fatherly and those kind of groups, but nothing specific to Reno, Nevada, to Northern Nevada. And we're just sitting around the table talking about what could we do to encourage this kind of involvement. And of course, it meant start our own thing and do it ourselves. So we got that thing off the ground, started writing about fatherhood, and found guys really want to talk about being dads. They want to get involved in that world and be active in that world. So it just started blossoming from there, from that early concept around the table to what we have today.
Yeah. And what made it, it's no small thing, right? Like, you guys have if you guys have to go over, everybody who's listening, you got to go over to the Reno Dads website, got to go to their Facebook page. It's just a beautifully designed. The writing is spot on, but it's no small amount of work. Like, you guys are really leaning into this. A question for you is, like, what made it urgent enough that, like, it wasn't just like, hey, I got some friends, we chat about fatherhood, but like, no, we need to take this forward.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just my style and Dave's style is if you're not moving forward, what's the point? So some of it's half baked. Like, we'll admit that some of it was a little half baked when we started, and in fact, when we first got going, we thought, well, Dave specifically said, if we can just get a free meal out of this, well, that'll all be worthwhile. If somebody will comp us a meal or something, then worthwhile. But then we started to look a little bit deeper into it, and we started to look at the data. I think Dave brought the data to the table first, and we started to look, I'll just label it, at societal ills. We started to look at the data behind people that were incarcerated, kids that were in juvenile detention, rapists, kids that are having developmental issues, and there was all these ties back to fatherhood, specifically a father just being in the home. And we're talking 70, 80, 90%. When they would survey of people that were incarcerated, they go, well, there's this common thread. You didn't have a dad in the home growing up. And so we thought, oh, shoot, we ought to take this a little more seriously. This is going to be fun still, I think, but we ought to take this a little more seriously. And maybe there's something altruistic here. Maybe there is something we really can do for our community. And if we start to impact our corner of the world, then we're hopeful to have sort of this grander, and there's dads all over the country and the world doing similar things. So if we can impact our corner of the world, then we're helping out. So again, it's still been a blast. It's been hugely fun, but we realize that there's a little more to it that impacts our community.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you mentioned the empirical data, right? Like that, I think that there's this intrinsic value in sharing the story and being willing to sort of open up about the struggles or the challenges or the insights or the gifts of fatherhood, but being able to back it up with this real world, no joke. Hey, actually, there's some statistics that are both alarming and impactful about the way that we can, impact, or I'm going to use impact twice, about impacting our kids, and what can, or what factors there are that will really inform, their future. And if for no other reason than the way that we live as fathers. You guys are right in my wheelhouse with this. Evidently, I just trip over my tongue while I'm talking about it.
You're so excited about it, yeah.
I'm so excited. If for no other reason than that we get this opportunity, our kid, like, I can tell my children to pick up their shoes in the hallway 100 times over. But what I know is if I don't pick up my shoes, they're not going to pick up theirs, right? That's that old, do as I say, not as I do. But our kids will get an idea of what it means to be a father, what it means to be a parent, what it means to be an adult, what it means to be a spouse, what it means to be a man, partially from the way that we are with them.
Absolutely. I'd say one of the evolutions of Reno Dads, also, as I was mentioning, is this. We thought, looking at that data again, we thought, well, can we really do anything about making sure dads stay in the picture or stay there? We weren't sure we could, but we thought for those that are, and those that are out of the picture aren't checking out dads' blogs anyway, probably, we thought. But we thought those that are, we can help them be more conscious about it. We can make sure that they can be active fathers. We've sort of been leaning into this concept of dad as a verb to create this concept of you have to be active, right? Just being there is only step one. Like, that's the least you can do, is just physically be there. And so being more active, and Dave, I'll maybe kick this over to you to talk about that concept of conscious fatherhood.
Yeah, well, we've been asked to do speeches, and we're starting a podcast and all that thing, and we're always having to really reevaluate, or not really reevaluate, but evaluate what we're doing, how we define fatherhood. And we were satisfied with the statistics saying being present is almost good enough. it is
The
good
bar
enough.
is set low for dads.
Yeah, the bar is set really low. And then
Yeah.
we started just pitching this idea of being active. But as we started talking about fatherhood, writing about fatherhood, thinking about it, it started to become more conscious of a concept for us, not just being active, but consciously thinking about our actions, what kind of fathers we want to be, being very involved in the concept of fatherhood, not just being a father in general. And we're starting to develop that idea a little bit more and I think this might just be an internal thing. People read on a website, that's just being active, but sitting there being introspective and reading and changing your life on how to improve yourself as a father to become that father you want to be for your children. That's more of that conscious.
I'll say that's a side effect that Dave and I didn't think we would have from this project is this looking inside oneself and really being more conscious about it and go, boy, if I'm going to write about this, because and we've taken this line of we're not an advice column. We don't know what we're doing. We're fumbling our way through this. Don't come to us for the answers. We're not the experts.
Right.
We're just dads, and I think that's the charm. And listening to some of the other interviews you've done, Charlie, with some of the other dads, I think that's sort of a concept that's going across dad blogging. Is we're not pretending to be experts, but what's interesting is that just by talking about it and by putting our stories out there and sharing our experiences, we do think about our position on those sorts of things. So if we're going to talk about discipline, for example, we have to evaluate our own position on discipline to write about it or to talk about it. Or if we're going to talk about, exercising with your kids or staying fit or any of those things that have to do with being a better man or a better father, then we have to sort of evaluate our own process. And then you get this higher level of consciousness about it. And the next time that you're sitting next to your kid and he's on his tablet and you're on your phone, it clicks faster to go, no, this isn't the legacy I want. This isn't the narrative. Like, this isn't the story I want told for my relationship with my kid. Let me shake out of this real fast and be more consciously here and be more consciously a father.
Yeah. I think what has me get so engaged with the story that you're both telling about how you see Reno Dads, how you see fatherhood, is it's not a passive participation, but it's an active leaning in and actually a growing process from the way you guys see it.
Yeah, it's helped us grow. And again, we thought, hey, this is something we're doing for other dads in the community, and selfishly, it's helped us grow as dads too. And I get that same feedback from, we've got about a dozen writers, I think 13 now, that contribute to Reno Dads, whether that's through events or through writing for the blog. And they're, one of the reasons that they say they enjoy it is not necessarily because they just have a writing outlet, but it's the relationships with other dads. It's us being able to talk about fatherhood. And it is, there's something cathartic about it too, about being able to let this all out and to talk about it. Because again, what's the forum? What's the norm for dads? We found, even when we were talking about creating this idea, we don't really get together and talk about being dads all that much when we were with our buddies. So, how do we make that a norm? And we look at our wives, and when they get together, it's like all they talk about is being moms, and all that's when they get together, that's all they talk about. Not to make them one-dimensional, but we go, well, so what's the norm for dads, and should it be normal? Is it normal to talk about fatherhood? And if it's not, how do we make that more normal?
It was great. I love that you're saying this. There was this amazing distinction that was created for me in a program I took around Waldorf education. Both my kids went to Waldorf schools, and a Waldorf instructor, it came, and they were talking about the distinction between the way that men and women connect, and that the metaphor they use is, or the distinction they created was like, women create connection sitting across a table looking eye to eye. And that's the way they create connection. And I think that, naturally, when we look out in the world, it seems commonplace. Men create connection standing shoulder to shoulder in shared activity or shared work. In our community, I actually created a dad's ping pong night. If for no other reason than it's an excuse not to get together to talk, because if you go, hey, we're going to have a night where dads just sit around and talk about being dads. You might get crickets in my experience. But when the moment that I said, hey, it's a ping pong night, come on out, we're going to play ping pong. What I notice is halfway through the night, nobody's playing ping pong and the guys are all sitting together talking about being dads and what their kids are up to and what's going on for them.
Yeah, I love it. And it's something we struggled with going into this too, we know there's we don't know what it is. Like, we're not psychologists, but we don't know what it is that prevents dads from making this part of a normal activity. We also knew if we write this stuff, if we create it, is anyone actually even going to look at that? I think anybody who writes or anybody who creates sort of has some anxiety about that. Is like, what's the whole point of this? Is that, like, it's great that my mom and my dad are probably going to check it out, but like, is anybody else going to read this stuff? And we have found, like, our data, we look at our data all the time, and it's a pretty 50-50 split between male and female. So we're presuming moms and dads, and we're still seeing moms as a major conduit of information to dads. So we thought, well, maybe passively, if we have a good social media presence, that at least dads will attach themselves to this. They'll connect with Reno Dads out of pride of fatherhood and pride of community, and they're going to be exposed to some of this here and there, at least. Oh, that's the theory we're running with.
Sorry, it's our theory, and we're just going with it.
Uh-huh.
So I have a question for you. You said, like, hey, we're not psychologists. Like, what backgrounds did you have? Backgrounds that led you that this would lead you to running a dad's group online?
Yeah, totally natural backgrounds.
Yeah. I spent a bunch of years as an undercover CIA officer overseas. So the first experiences I have in fatherhood is deployments to the worst places on earth and seeing my kid over a video chat quite like this for many months. So yeah, my background's a little bit different as far as it comes to fatherhood, but in my experience, it gave me a lot more of every time I got to see my kid, that was the only moment I had for that day or that week or whatever it was. So it became very important for me to have that relationship, even if my kid thought daddy was the iPad or whatever it was, but coming home, it's become more of that's where this consciousness developed, because I missed so much opportunity. I wanted to not miss that again. The whole reason I got out was to be part of that family unit again. So yeah, my background doesn't really fall in line with the whole fatherhood concept, of course, but
I thought you told me you retired from the CIA to become a dad blogger specifically.
Well,
there was a calling there.
Baby steps.
Well, if nothing else, David, it sounds like it gave you the urgency, right? Like there was this urgency that showed up for you when you became a dad that inspired it.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it, I would love to say it was totally altruistic. I wanted to be a dad more than I wanted to be a spy. But, unfortunately, I was good at what I did, which meant more and more assignments, more and more time away from my family. And it came down to a conversation with my wife and I. It's like, we have to choose what kind of life we're going to lead, because she's living in a hotel, in some random city, and I'm deployed to some crazy place we can't talk about.
Yeah.
But we never see each other.
I was wondering if you were going to tell us where you were.
Mike's been waiting for years to find out where you were, David.
And here's the big reveal.
Yeah, and here's the big reveal live.
Yeah, this is a scoop right here.
Yeah, okay, how about that? North Africa, Arab Spring. I was involved in all that funness.
There you go.
But actually, my kids lived in North Africa during a war, for, the few months of the war that they were still there. And the agency is a great place, phenomenal place, but it's just not a great place to raise children in the environments that I worked at. If I was a traditional officer doing things in Germany or London or that kind of stuff, I mean, I would have loved a Paris assignment, just not in the cards for me or my family,
right?
So making that conscious decision to put my family first, to put the lives that we built together first, and get out of the agency, and that was a choice we made.
Yeah, it's surprise. Excuse me. I just want to make sure that we occasionally make sure that we put Reno Dads up on the screen. It actually surprises me that given where you were, that it was safe enough for you to deploy with your family.
Yeah, well, country first.
Yeah, no, I get that. I totally get that.
And it's easier to send people like me to places with my family, than to have me go out for years on end and not have that family. You're a better officer if you have a good family life. Our chief of station would make us it was fantastic. He'd make us take vacations to Rome and Paris and all these fantastic places with our family because we had to get into the right mindset of a good, happy family life if we were going to have a good career and a good work life. So there were advantages, but at the end of the day, mission came first, and it was a constant battle between, all right, I'll see you when I see you, which you can only have that conversation once or twice with your wife before you don't know if you're going to have a wife when you come home,
Yeah.
So those kind of issues we had to deal with.
Yeah. So Mike, tell us about your background, Mike.
Yeah, well, it's great to go second because mine's way less sexy than that. But
just so we're clear, everybody's is less sexy than that. Mike, just like I'm leaving this interview now.
No, I'm used to this for a long time now. I've been with at parties and get-togethers and stuff with Dave, and when he goes first, and then it's like now it's my turn. It's cool. But my background is in marketing and advertising, and I teach too. I actually teach digital marketing, so content marketing, that sort of thing. So that's part of what helped me think that I could do this. Is it is really just an exercise in what I've been teaching and what I've been doing my whole life is really in content production, in looking at websites and analytics and what works, what doesn't work, social media, what's going to work, what's not going to work. That being said, it's also been a forum for frustration that it hasn't worked, as fast as I wanted it to. By this time I was like, Dave, we're going to have 10,000 followers or likes on Facebook. And, we're at, a handful of months in, we're at like 1,200 or so. So still, but I've had to temper expectations because, I'm just ambitious about that kind of stuff. But, speaking of backgrounds, we've got this team of a dozen people. And what's really special to me, and one thing that I'm really proud of and really pushing for with Reno Dads, is that it is a collection of voices. And I think that's something that is unique to us, that it isn't just Mike's position on this. It's not just Dave's position on this. It's not and we tend to agree on a lot of things, so that would get really dull really fast. That we have dads from all sorts of different backgrounds, from different areas that now live in Reno, but some in marketing, some in healthcare, some in mortgages, firefighters. We actually do have a family. I'm going to mess his title up.
Family and marriage therapist.
Family and marriage therapist. Thank you. Shout out to Jake. But we have people from all walks of life and different perspectives and different. When he talks about some of the articles that he'll write will be about what's happening physiologically when you are yelling at your kids. Why is that happening? What actually is going on in your mind and in your body that's causing this response? And so there's been all sorts of interesting angles, but I love the idea that it's sort of a mashup of voices. It's a representation of our community. We want to be even more diverse in what we are able to offer our community in terms of dad perspectives. Because again, if the whole idea is let's share this journey of fatherhood together, let's share war stories, so to speak. Let's compare what it's like for you and what it's like for me. And if it's just one side, if it's only what's it like for Mike to be a dad, then I think maybe you lose the opportunity for some dads to look at that and go, well, that hasn't been my experience, so I must be weird or I must be doing it wrong. And that's never been our intention. And Dave will attest to this too. The mommy shaming that we saw in so many parent blogs, we said, that's sort of our mission too, is let's eliminate that as much as possible. This idea of parent shaming, because it isn't, you bring your kid in to sleep with you in the bed and you don't. So which one's right? You breastfed, you didn't. Who's right? And we just thought there's not a right or a wrong per se, but let's share these experiences and you decide what's right or wrong for you.
And that purpose only is to tear others down as opposed to bring everyone together. And we're talking about that low bar that fatherhood is. We want to encourage, we don't care what you do it, consciously do it, but be active and do it. So we're not looking to the concept of this is the right way, but this is rather the way that worked for me. This works in my environment. It's not going to work in everybody else's environment. I can't raise Mike's kids. He has a different environment. Like, my approach is different than Mike's, but it's not to say Mike's wrong or I'm wrong. It's to say that we're both doing what we can. The shaming part is my biggest pet peeve when it comes to any parenting at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's funny is we keep talking about that low bar, the low bar of fatherhood, but we're happy to share failures too. Like, Dave wrote an article about how he let his kid. I don't know if it's but it happened that I'll shame you right now, Dave. That his kid drove his bike into this kind of freezing pond or freezing stream or something like that.
Right.
But it's not perfect. We're not talking about here's the product is not here's how you be a perfect dad. It's just, hey, we're all figuring this out. Here's what my journey's like. I want to hear about what your journey's like. We'll meet somewhere in between.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you. So it sounds like you guys agree with a lot. You certainly have created this sort of rich and diverse culture of writers who share on the site. You have a sort of multifaceted, you're aware that there's just lots of different ways to do it. I'm curious, what do you notice about you as a parent or a dad or a spouse from having been willing to sort of step into this space and share your story and be exposed to so many others?
Go ahead, Dave. I'm monopolizing things.
Well, I mean, the project to me has just helped me just more define what it is to be a father. Like, when I was talking about being the father you want to be, not that I spent the first 6-7 years of my kid's life just being a dad and just throwing the ball and, simple as that kind of stuff, calling it in a little bit. But now it's more like we keep going back to that consciously parenting. I'm more thinking about how is this going to impact not just his day, but his week, his month, his year, his future, these kind of things. And it's putting a lot of that, it's making being a dad more of a hobby and a passion rather than just being something that my kids, created when they were born. It's something that I've always been very as active as anybody with their kids, but now I'm more consciously getting involved, thinking, what kind of impact will this have? What kind of father do I want to be to my children? Not saying the kind of father I want, but rather the father I want to be, Yeah. So those kind of thoughts, I suppose.
It sounds like we're having a conversation about legacy.
Yeah, well, our legacy is when you look at those statistics, it's all about whether that dad was present or not. I mean, when you're talking how well they do in school, how, what their odds are to have a successful life, well, it comes down to that dad, I mean, a lot of it's correlation, but it's a strong correlation of having a father in that child's life. So our legacy is helping my kid get through these struggles, but not just giving it to them, but helping them understand in how to navigate that world on their own. That's what's going to make us successful. And consciously thinking about those as we're going about our day rather than, just calling it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's even maybe something, again, I'm playing amateur psychologist here, but there's something to that too, Dave, about this legacy and about, I don't know, maybe there's something even instinctual with men about, from the animal kingdom all the way to civilized man, about wanting your legacy to be carried on and your family to be carried on in some way that's very intentional. And I think that's unique, and I'm hoping that's something any dad could get behind, is this concept of, boy, if I'm going to do something well in this world, it's that I'm going to pass on, if I have control over how my son or daughter ends up being as an adult and impacting the world around them and the kind of life they have ahead of them, then this is absolutely worth doing right, or this is absolutely worth doing in a really conscious way. And I'd say, to carry on the answer to that question, that's been the effect on me too, and I'm hoping it's the effect on other dads in our community. Is that, it's that whole concept of that the unexamined life is not worth living. That good old quote. So it's almost like examine your life as a father, and is it, if you're going to have the role, you might as well be damn good at it. You might as well be as good as you can be at it, and to hone any craft. And I thought that was a really interesting word that you used, Dave, hobby, because it's sort of a double meaning. A hobby is almost like something you don't really take seriously, but at the same time, it's something you like. You invest passion into, and you become almost obsessive about getting better at it. And that, I think that's kind of what this project has done for me. Is it's made fatherhood sort of a hobby, and that's why I say I don't mean it in the sense of like, yeah, it's something I do on the side, but more of a almost an obsession of focus now.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I love the for me, a word that comes to me regularly, especially as my kids get older, because I want to make sure to ask about your kids. Like, I have teenagers now, and the thing that shows up in my world as much parenting is mentorship, right? Like, the idea of mentorship and apprenticeship has fallen away from our society. And, where 100 years ago, young men and young women would be apprenticed out to a professional to learn a trade. There's much developing inside that apprenticeship and mentorship. And, I like to say that like, they can't know until they go. Kids have these opinions about like, well, I'm never going to want to do that without any experience of it. And so, it's on us to be able to sort of help guide them, and sometimes cajole them, and sometimes be a parent and go, yeah, but we're going to do that anyways. To have an experience of it. And sometimes the kids will be like, well, I didn't like that. Okay, well, at least you have an experience of it. And sometimes they, as we know, surprise the heck out of themselves and go, wow, that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's I'd even say that extends into general society, that people act that way. We get these, what we believe are these convictions, but without experience, without those convictions being tested in some way, we don't know. And I think that's setting your kids up for success, is to challenge them on some of those convictions, or to give them experience that lets them actually form, adult-like opinions and preferences and real life experience.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I realized that we jumped into this interview and just jumped waist deep. And I would love to just back up. And can you each just tell us a minute or two about your families? I get like, this is about being dads. Tell us about your family.
Fortunately, this is going to be the short part. Our stories are almost identical. We're both born and raised in Reno. Our kids are born and raised in Reno. Both of our oldest boys are 8, and both of our youngest boys are 4.5. They play.
It wasn't planned. As far as we know, the wives didn't plan it that way.
Yeah, so as far as we know.
Coincidence.
And, they play in the same sports. Mike lives, blocks away.
Mm-hmm. See how boring this blog would be if it was just Dave and I writing it. We're the same person in too many ways.
There's not much to it.
Right. Did you see that thing at the playground earlier today? That probably wouldn't go all that well.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys both have 2 boys, I grew up, I now have a son and a daughter, but I grew up with a brother. So I'm kind of guessing you guys have a mosh pit in your homes if you have 2 boys, 8 and 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, we have bigger houses, some decent square footage, but somehow they still fill it up with noise and Legos and smashing everything. And
lots of Legos, especially after Christmas. Lots of Legos.
Lots of Legos.
I had to come find a spot in my house to hide from the noise and the kids and the dogs, and because they're on spring break still, or winter break, whatever it is. But yeah,
no,
it's
back to school. They went back to school on Monday, Dave.
Oh, only half of them. And Sebastian's still loud enough for both.
But who can keep track?
But who can keep track? Yes, there's one of them out there. Yeah, my dad used to do that sort of. My dad had 5 kids in a couple of different marriages, and he used to be like, Chip, Charlie, Chip, whatever your name is, get over here. I used to get that all the time. So I'm curious, what's next for Reno Dads? Like it sounds like you guys have like fulfilled on what your intention was to start.
Yeah.
You've distinguished yourself about like why you're not like other sites or other organizing. What do you see? Where do you see taking Reno Dads?
Yeah, and this is an excellent question, because if it was asked 6 months ago, it would have been a totally different answer. We've let it evolve. Dave and I say yes to ideas and opportunities, and for better or worse, and we'll figure it out when we start. But it looks like it, at least for the immediate future for 2018, and like I said, we've sort of been evolving to get into events a little bit more. So we did our first the end of last year, we did our first father-daughter hairstyling clinic. So we did a clinic. We partnered with a local salon, Paul Mitchell Studio, and brought in a bunch of dads and their daughters, and they learned how to. We'll do some of the basics, but also they did ponytails. They did a 3-strand braid, and then this like pinned up bun, like Princess Leia kind of, except
Nice.
back here, kind of bun. And so we're going to do another one of those because it was in high demand. It was free, but it sold out. We had limited seats right away, so we'll do another one of those. We're planning on doing a dad joke battle, like a head-to-head dad joke battle for Reno. So we'll crown a dad joke king of Reno here sometime in the spring. And then we want to continue to just diversify who we have on our team, and we just think more and more ideas and events. We've been doing fun runs. We've been doing anything that'll get us out in the community and connected to dads and to influencers in this community.
Oh, that sounds.
Not to mention
what I missed, Dave.
Podcasting now.
Oh shoot!
And
yeah, so they gave us. Somebody gave us a radio show.
Somebody gave you a radio show?
Yeah, they opened there's a new radio station in town, and they were looking for content, and we said we could do a show about Reno Dads, and they said, yeah, you're in. So we're doing that, and then that content is sort of doubling as a podcast. So now we're like, let's get into podcasting here too. So we're figuring all this stuff out a little bit along the way, but everything's just a different channel to deliver a message, I think, and we've got content galore. So all these different ways that we can connect with dads, and somewhere down the road, this is. I don't know that we've really revealed this to our community yet, but we'll again. Your show is the one that's going to scoop. We got Dave's location in North Africa. Scoop that info, but we'll somewhere down the road here we want to do Fatherhood Awards, and we threw around this concept of calling it the Daddies, but then it sounded kind of weird and creepy. So some dad awards down the road where we award not only just dads that are doing great things in this community for their families or for the community, but community partners, businesses, organizations that are doing things that support fatherhood and parenting, and just recognizing them for all that hard work. We're biting off way more than we can chew. Way more than we can chew. But
absolutely.
We're a good team. Like, we're focused on operations, and we like to execute. So
yeah, and I don't sleep. So I'm super productive in the middle of the night.
Oh, well, it sounds like you guys have got a great partnership working, and big stuff for 2018. I really want to thank you guys for taking time out of what is clearly your busy schedule to come and spend a little bit of time sharing your story and what's up. Now, how can people find out more about Reno Dads, or how can they connect with you? What's the best way?
The website's great, renodads.com, but Facebook is sort of our central point. It's our number one channel for traffic right now in terms of traffic to the website. So that's facebook.com/Reno Dads, but we're on Instagram as well. That's been it's totally separate content on Instagram as you'll get on Facebook. Twitter's a little bit more of syndicated content from the blog. Facebook is sort of somewhere in between. So you get all the content from the blog, but also just some what else is going on in our community. And on Instagram, are you also just Reno Dads? Yep, that's the handle all over the place. We finally wrestled it away from Facebook. Somebody else had Reno Dads for the longest time, and Dave was able to. I don't even want to ask how he got it. So. Yeah, just don't ask. Yeah, I find it's best if I don't know. I knew some people from a former job I had. Yeah.
We had a conversation.
Somehow the other guy disappeared, and I don't ask questions.
Excellent. Well, Mike and David, this has just been really great. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to connect and share your story. I understand you guys are not going to be at Dad 2.0, but it's clearly, if for no other reason, then you're both going to be that busy between now and then. You got stuff to do. Reno's busy with Dad stuff.
It is. We're trying. We're pushing it hard.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, this has been Charlie King with Heroic Fatherhood. I have one last question for you guys. We're doing a rollout next month in a program that's called Own Your Morning, about creating structures and rhythms in your morning to empower your kids' days and make your days the most productive and powerful. I'm curious, what's one thing you do in the morning that helps set you up for having a great day?
Go for it, DB.
I work from home, so basically I'm already set to have a great day. I can't complain. The kids are getting to a point where I don't want to use the word automated, but they know how to do it. Get ready for school. They know how to get dressed, take a shower without prompting, go eat, make sure your homework's done, all that stuff. So getting to that point has sort of made my mornings even better.
Nice. How about for you, Mike?
Well, I would say that the mornings are not probably part of my highlight reel, my fatherhood highlight reel. But a few things that I like is I just like to make sure I take it slow. So I don't want to ever feel too rushed. I don't want the kids to ever feel too rushed. Sometimes by taking it so slow, then you get that rush right at the end and go, we've taken way too long and we need to get out of here right now. But we just take it slow. I make sure my wife gets our youngest out of the house and to daycare, and then I am in charge of getting our oldest ready and to school. So we just make sure we talk. I talk to him about what he's looking forward to for the day, what he's thinking about for the day. Sometimes we'll just do quizzes. So whatever we're trying to learn about it, when I was teaching him how to tell time on a traditional clock, just quizzing him about that, quizzing him about, when it starts to get colder, what temperature does water freeze at and all those sorts of things. So just sort of little quizzes like that in the morning and kind of seeing how his day goes. And then my secret to success is I eat a banana every single day. I feel I don't caffeinate. I don't do coffee and tea and that sort of thing. I drink a ton of water and make sure I eat banana every single day. It makes me feel energized and feel good, and I don't feel heavy and sluggish. So that's my go-to. I don't know how many thousands and thousands of bananas I've eaten in my life now.
Nice. So intrinsically, working from home and eating a banana a day, plus quizzes, plus all this intentional, gee whiz. These guys got lots going on. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Who knows if any of that's working? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We won't know for decades at this
Check
point.
back in a few years, yeah.
Exactly. Well, gentlemen, again, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming and participating and being part of the Dads Making a Difference series of interviews. If you want to find out more about these guys, make sure to go to Reno Dads and stay tuned because we got a bunch more interviews coming up. We've got dad bloggers coming out of the woodwork who are interested in being interviewed. So keep an eye on this space for more interviews. Gentlemen, have a great day. Thanks so much for your time today.
It's been a blast. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Charlie.